Today, I'm going to tell you which RWA tokens I think are excellent holds for this cycle and which ones you should avoid. I went through literally every RWA project there is, so this video will be the most valuable RWA video that is on YouTube right now for free. Before I proceed, please remember that nothing here is financial advice. Let me explain why some tokens didn't make it onto this list. This entire RWA narrative is built upon Larry Fink and BlackRock, and the biggest catalyst RWA tokens had this cycle so far was on March 19th, 2024, when BlackRock put $100 million onto Ethereum for their bidder fund. And you'll notice on any RWA project, if you go over to March 19th, you can see how price rallied after that date. So for example, ONDO did almost a 4x and it managed to sustain well above this pump. In fact, it's sustaining this pump by a 3x right now. So I call this level over here the BlackRock origin pump. So a great way to filter out RWA projects is look at the BlackRock origin pump and do two things. One, look at how much it went up after that initial announcement. If it barely pumped after that announcement, that's a horrible sign for the token. If it did pump and it fell a significant percentage below that origin pump, that's again another horrible sign for the token. I'm going to leave a link to this document in the description so you can play around with it and see what the relative strength is of each project. I think this second column matters a lot because it tells you the relative strength of every RWA token. Someone on X said to me that this style of analysis is more trader focused and short term. I don't agree with him. I think what price action around this BlackRock origin pump tells us a lot about the token, specifically in regards to buyers and sellers. If an RWA token barely pumped from the BlackRock announcement, either the market doesn't associate as RWA or there's an invisible hand pushing down the price. If it's dumped way below that level, whilst other RWA tokens like ONDO hold really strong, that means either the token holders are weak or there's a big whale pushing down the price, aka there's a lot of sellers. So you need to look at how different tokens within a narrative react to news because it gives you a great deal of information about the tokenomics and the holder base. Also, as I get into this tier list now, a lot of my rankings were based on intuition and gut feel. That means I haven't got the time per project to dive into everything, so I'm going to make it fast for every single project. For the first project, we've got ONDO. I made a video about this just a couple of days ago where I discussed its real tokenomics in depth. For anyone new watching, full disclosure, I got into ONDO really early and I still hold a lot of it in my portfolio. Short term, I believe it's an A tier pick because it's the best RWA project with the highest TVL and the strongest narrative through its association with BlackRock. The market has associated this as being the leader of the RWA narrative. And the truth is, this is not even ranked number 1. It's more like ranked number 4. But long term, this is an instant avoid because, as I explained in this video, the tokenomics are extremely dangerous. Make sure you watch this video after if you want to know why. But something I will say with ONDO is, it teaches you to predict how a retail investor would think. When I first bought it the day it came out, I thought about what retail investors would look towards when deciding what to buy. So I've applied that same framework across the rest of the tokens in this video to give you some alpha. Next up, we have Pendle. It has important fundamentals such as being on good exchanges, being backed by Binance. The narrative is good with the dual narrative of RWA and being an Ethereum ETF beta. The problem with this lies in the market cap and also the chart. Not so much in the sense that I'm worried about big unlocks coming or heavy dilution. It's got 15% inflation from VE Pendle rewards, but nothing that concerns me a lot. What concerns me is the social risk and also how big the market cap is. Firstly, there's no denying Pendle has a lot of attention on it, with big C2 traders shilling it. And regarding the market cap on the chart, let me read you my old notes from the 24th of June. I wrote that for me, it looks like buying into a parabolic uptrend when the cat is out of the bag. The market cap did 170x and the price did 150x this cycle alone. Whilst I think it's a decent project to hold, especially after it's pulled back quite a bit, I would not expect any major multipliers from this point. Taking into consideration how much it's already gone up all in one cycle, because that really does matter. So for me, Pendle goes in B tier. Next up, we've got PolyX, which is a layer 1 for RWA. As a project, it's certainly legitimate, but with that being said, it always goes back to how hard or easy will this be to sell to someone. At $300 million in market cap, I can't think of any compelling reasons I could use to sell this. The main positive is it's listed on Binance, but in terms of having notable backers, data metrics like TVL, or even something really unique that sets it apart in this narrative, I really couldn't find anything. So intuitively for me, it went high C tier. It's nothing I get out of bed for. And this is going to be a common theme throughout this video. None of these projects are bad because, as I said, I picked them based on the relative strength. But do you want to hold something that's average, or do you want to hold the best token in the narrative? Next up, we've got Centrifuge. This is the only RWA project that has more funding than ONDO. And within the RWA niche, it has two key narratives going for it. Firstly, it has a $300 million TVL. Secondly, it has some of the best backers in the space, like Coinbase and other tier ones. And these are the sorts of things that people look for when deciding when to invest because they want safety. The issue is the exchange listings let it down quite a bit. With only tier 2 listings and a $260 million market cap, it's really high. I would add this to my watch list at certain price points, as it's definitely one of the best RWA projects in this list. But $260 million in market cap, it's too expensive. And you also have to consider that it had one of the weakest reactions to the BlackRock pump with only a 2x. So overall, for me, it goes in low B tier. Next up, we've got GFI. This one has a lot of things going for it, but it's got some issues as well. It's listed on Coinbase. It's got Coinbase Ventures and other tier 1 VCs that people will use as a narrative to shield this. At $235 million, it's a little high market cap for me, and if it went lower, I would actually be interested in buying this, but there's a couple of problems you need to be aware of. Firstly, there's 1.6% monthly inflation from insiders, but what I did was I plotted these on a chart against the altcoin index, and I can't see any evidence that these unlocks have a big effect on the price. There's been issues in the past regarding loan defaults and some FUD, and that's something that people don't realize, that the RWA sector has more real businesses and things that can go wrong, and that's why I don't recommend being too heavily exposed to one single coin. To finish off GFI, it's got an interesting catalyst coming up with its V3 smart contracts. At this valuation, it's hard to justify an A tier ranking, but I'm going to give it an A tier and say wait for lower to accumulate. And the reason I say that is because if I look at what's above it, I think it's better than this, and even this. Next up, we've got TrueFi, which goes in a void. It has everything on the perception level to be bullish. It's on Binance and Coinbase. It's got big backers with notable funding. But there's one big reason I would not invest in this, and that is the people behind this aren't even active. The project's Twitter hasn't tweeted in a month. There's no media articles publishing updates. The Discord and Telegram are dead. And every time I invest, I'm looking at just one project out of 100 where I can actually put good money into it. Otherwise, it's just not worth my time. And because of the social side of things with this project, it deserves to go in a void. The biggest selling point that Chex has is its licenses. And these are licenses that are actually quite difficult to get. And it's one of the key narratives that this project has going for it. The most interesting thing about Chex is the sort of cult following the founder is creating on X. And if you think back to last cycle, Do Kwon, etc., these sorts of founders can make a token's price pump. In September, they're supposed to be doing a major onboarding which will balloon their TVL, so it's worth keeping on the watch list. The main concerns I have over this is it's at $133 million market cap. It's quite high. It's really illiquid with almost no volume because it's got no big exchange listings. And that's why it couldn't really convince my gut feeling that it's a buy right now. And I believe for now, it goes in low B tier. Next up, we've got LCX. I'm only including LCX in this video because a lot of my people in the Discord hold it or like it. And it's going to link back to what I said when I showed you at the start. It pumped 80%, which was a measly reaction to the BlackRock Origin pump. And then it sold off way below that level, and it couldn't even defend its Origin pump anymore. And as I said, the chart is the truth, and all that means is either someone big is selling LCX, or people don't associate it as a true RWA project and don't want to buy it. As an RWA project, it goes in a void for me. Next up, we've got Dusk, which is easy to dismiss as a really old 2019 project. But then I dug deeper and I found that they have a mainnet catalyst on the September 20th. The reason this is big is basically the culmination of everything they've been working on since this project's inception 5-6 years ago. I believe Dusk goes in A tier for the short term as a stabler play because it's easy to access on Binance. It's got a huge upward coming, which means it will generate buy flows as we approach that date. And also, most importantly, barely anyone is even talking about this. I scanned Twitter and half the posts are from 2021 and 2019. So this is really under the radar and it presents an opportunity where you can dump into the hype that the mainnet catalyst gets. The key risks, of course, are it gets delayed, like what happened with STX and Nakamoto. Okay, for IXX, I'm going to be really transparent. I think it has everything in terms of partnerships and key things retail investors look for to buy. It's got a partnership with big banks, big backers like Coinbase, etc. But the issue that I have is the actual token itself is not directly involved in that. It's the parent company, InvestX. So I'm just going to leave that there, although I'd have preferred it if all the partnerships and backing were directly associated with this itself. The bigger problem I have is it's $100 million in market cap and it's got no decent exchange listings, which means it's very, very hard for people to buy. It's got the lowest volume to market cap ratio of almost all the RWA tokens, and you have to remember that some people just like sticking to the safety of exchanges like Coinbase and Binance. There is not a single token above this except for checks that does not have some sort of a tier 1 listing. Of course, if the exchange listing does come, it's going to be a mega catalyst. So if you hold this, you need to make sure they're actually working towards that and they're likely to get them. Otherwise, a ceiling will form in terms of the valuations you can get to. And I've seen this happen with many projects. Everything for this project hinges entirely upon getting on big exchanges. If you hold it, it has been one of the strongest holding tokens since the BlackRock pump. But remember, this is linked to the really low trading volume that it has. For me, and my gut feeling, it put it as a B tier project. Next up, we've got Seapool. Nothing really excites me here. It's just a decent average project all around. It's got good backers, decent exchanges. A lot of the vesting from the insiders from last cycle is already done. But what puts me off is mainly the unclear tokenomics. So there's 400 million tokens that are uncirculating. Some of it is pool rewards, so there's inflation there, but it's other things like partnerships and reserve tokens. And if you actually look on chain, you can see that these tokens are being sent out. If they actually showed like a schedule for how they expected these tokens to be used, then we could calculate a future market cap and say, okay, it's diluting by 15% this year. But there isn't. So if you hold this, make sure you know what they're actually spending these tokens on. Because this sort of on-chain analysis and seeing what the foundation, the team is actually doing with the tokens will give you a massive edge over the people who won't look at this stuff. For me, Clearpool goes in C tier. Next up, we've got Rio. There's a lot of positives that Rio has and some negatives as well. The negatives are there's lack of communication regarding Medium posts and blog updates. Every single decent project gives a weekly or monthly update on what's happening with the project. This one hasn't done so in 4 months, and then before that, it hadn't done so in about 8 months. Anyways, that's just me nitpicking. The bigger concern I have is actually a double-edged sword. So the Rio community is really strong, there's no doubt about that. But the issue I have is a lot of people already know about this token. It's actually one of the most talked about RWA tokens in my Discord. I scanned X and I see a few accounts that I know for a fact are paid chillers talking about Rio. So that leaves me thinking, how much actual alpha is there in holding Rio? You also have to think about how retail thinks. Rio doesn't have any notable backers or major exchange listings, which is what retail new investors typically look for. So my thesis for Rio is it's a B tier project. The community carries it, and it's also had one of the strongest reactions to the BlackRock origin pump. But for my portfolio, I would have no conviction in it. A small percentage allocation, if someone told me they had it, I wouldn't really argue against it because it's naturally going to benefit from the RWA narrative, but it's not for me. With SMT, I'll make this one quick. I remember reviewing this in January, February, and people were asking me, should I hold ONDO or SMT? And I said to them, hold ONDO. I think it's okay if you want some basket exposure to the RWA narrative, but I would only treat this as a narrative play. There's nothing really particularly impressive that I found that would really entice someone to buy this. It got hacked before in January. There's no really strong exchange listings, backers, or funding information that retail looks towards. And really, it's going to be retail investors who you have to appeal to with these sorts of projects. At $60 million in FTV, and I say $60 million because they're about to vote on a proposal to cut the supply down a lot. It's so illiquid for a $60 million market cap project. There's no real institutional players or big traders that can buy this because they can't get any size without pushing the price up. So I would put this in C tier. It's a decent project, but there's better options out there at this sort of valuation. Next up, we've got Trueflation. And instantly, we can just look at the tokenomics. You've got 10 million tokens every month going towards investors. And then you've got team unlocks in 3 months at 2.5 million tokens a month. That's enough for me to say that this is an instant avoid, as anyone will take one look at this vesting schedule and will be put off from buying it. So that's why it's an avoid for me. Next up, we've got BST, which was one of the weakest reactors to the BlackRock pump for the low caps. Take a look at BKN as an example of a low cap and how high it pumped. It pumped 13x after the announcement. So that tells me that BST has a big seller suppressing the price, or they're just not that much interested in buying it. There was also nothing here that really wowed me. 99% of investor tokens are yet to come onto the market, which I didn't like. And they weren't giving me proper information on the tokenomics in the Telegram, so I'm putting it in low C tier. To finish off this video, I want you to really think carefully about the BlackRock origin pump concept that I showed you in today's video. If you hold RWA tokens, look at how they're doing in relation to this, because it will tell you a lot. I'm going to leave the link to this in the description so you can have a look at it yourself. And make sure you check out my premium service. I'm just going to really quickly explain what I intend to do with this service, as I've had questions about it. I believe when it comes down to it, all I want to do is get you out of underperformers and into outperformers. And then what I want to do is provide you with an edge of when to take profit and also exit this cycle. The number one thing people say in the middle of the next bear market is, I wish I took profit. So if you want to get in before I close this round and increase the prices, click the link in the pinned comments. When you get in, come to the portfolio tuning channel and post your portfolio, and me and other members will review it directly. Thanks for watching.